So one of the greatest success stories that I have about giving difficult information and having difficult conversations involves somebody that we're going to call Lori. We'll call her Lori. So for many years, I worked as a consultant with medical practices all around the country. And physicians would hire me to come in and make sure that they were profitable. So we worked on the various profit centers in their practice, and I worked on in making sure we had team training, hiring, firing, terminating, professional development elements that were put in place, and we would have a great focus on how they would maintain a healthy and fiscally healthy practice. So in one case, I was called into this practice with 4 physicians. They'd been in business for about 20 years. And one of the first steps that I take is to interview every single person on the staff, from the physicians to the receptionists and everywhere in between, and spend time talking to every one of them about what do they love about the practice, what would they change if they could, what's getting in their way of feeling successful. And one of the common themes, and I don't mean one of the common themes, the common theme was the way people talked about this person, Lori. The comments were things like, Lori is a tyrant. Lori yells at us. Lori makes me crazy. Lori makes me cry. I want to quit. People have quit. So the stories went on and on. So after I had interviewed the entire staff, I sat down with the physicians and said, tell me about Lori. What's going on? And you could just see them all kind of deflate. And their first response was, Lori was our very first employee. She has been here forever, since the beginning. She has been the most loyal person. She is an incredible nurse. And so I said, but the last couple years, it's like a different person. And so I asked him, why haven't you done anything about this sooner? Now, I knew the answer. I'd already met with these physicians several times, so I knew some of the challenges they faced in leadership, but I needed them to say it out loud. And they all said, we hoped she would go back to normal. Well, we all know that hope is not a strategy, but hope is usually something that keeps people from having difficult conversations when they don't want to or they don't feel comfortable and confident in them. And I had to take the bull by the horn. So I said, well, here's the thing. You have lost good people because of Lori. You will lose more good people because of Lori. Is it worth it to your practice? And they all agreed no. But they didn't want to lose her if they didn't have to. And I agree. When you have somebody who's loyal and who's been there and is a talented professional, you want them still on your team, but you can't have a toxic person on your team. It will be destructive. So I said, okay, well, here's the thing. I'm going to take this on head on, and we are either going to have her completely on board or we will transition her out, in which case I want your permission to do something rather unique. So I'll explain that in a minute. They didn't want this to have to happen, but they all knew it had to happen. So when I called her in the next day, it was a Thursday, late in the afternoon. I waited till near the end of the day. And I called her into my office and I said, okay, we need to talk. We're going to have a pretty difficult conversation. And as I said that, you could see her, get up and, physically start to put up her defenses, which is normal. It's completely natural. And I said, Lori, here's the thing. As I interviewed everybody and asked them, what they loved about the practice, what they loved about their jobs, and the things that they didn't love about their jobs and that were getting in the way of them feeling that they were successful in their jobs. And the common denominator, Lori, is you. And I let that sit there for a minute. It was really it wasn't hard for me to say it. It's hard for me to have to say those things to people because I know they're human beings and I didn't want to hurt her, but I also had to shock her and I had to have her hear it in a way that was not angry, not emotionally charged because I didn't have any backstory with her, but that was very clear. So I let it sit there for a couple seconds and I said, what I'm hearing is that you are angry, that you are, you yell, that you slam doors, that you create an environment that feels hostile. How do you feel when I tell you these things?" And she was just really quiet. She didn't say anything, actually. And so people's responses are different in these difficult conversations. Sometimes they start to defend. Sometimes they make excuses. Sometimes they cry. Sometimes they are begging for another chance. She just went really quiet. So obviously I knew there was a lot going on in that brain, and I didn't want to beat her with it, but I had to make sure that our next steps were clear. So I said, "Well, Lori, you know that my objective here is to make sure that this is a very high-functioning, healthy, and fiscally healthy practice. And if where you are today is the biggest juggernaut for us, then we need to fix it." I said, "But I also want to tell you what the physicians said about you. They described you as their very first employee, absolutely loyal, an incredible professional, someone that they would hate to lose. How do you feel when I tell you those things?" And her resolve started to fade a little bit. She actually kind of cringed a little and went forward. And I said, "I hope that those things make you realize that you are valued, and that you have brought things to this practice that are incredibly important. But there is a contrast between who you were and who you are. And we have to either deal with a bridge between that contrast, or we have to find a bridge out. And so that's what I'm here to do. So Lori, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go home tonight and just scoot out the back door. You don't need to see anybody else in the practice tonight." And I said, "I want you to go home and I want you to really think about this. Because tomorrow morning I want to start with you first thing in the morning. And I need a decision from you. And the decision is either A or B. There's no C. There's either A or B. And A is, we will work together to give you whatever training, support, encouragement, kudos that you need to get you back to that person that they always love to have in this practice. The high energy, the high functioning, the team builder, the glue that brought things together. So either A, we're going to create a plan and we're going to get you there. Or B is, we're going to give you 3 months where we're going to pay you. We're going to get you a resume and job recruitment coach. We're going to pay for any job search costs that you have, but you won't come into the office anymore. And you will still have benefits. You will have whatever you need. These docs will give you recommendations. They will help get you introductions. And the goal is to help you find a place where you're happier. So either A, you stay, which is what everybody wants. Everybody wants it. Or B, we will help you find a place that you're happier. And we're going to do it with as much respect as you deserve for putting in almost 20 years in this practice. But it's A or B. So when she walked out, the docs, of course, came in and said what happened. And I said, you know, it's interesting. People usually either get really angry or they cry. I can't tell you. For the first time ever, I can't tell you what she's going to pick. I really can't. Most of the time I could tell you without a doubt. But she was a completely closed book. So she came in the next morning. I have to admit I had butterflies in my stomach because I really didn't want to lose her. I really didn't. I wanted her to fight for this tenure in this great company with these great docs. But I wasn't sure. She seemed to have a wall that was built pretty big around her, that it would have been easy for her to slip into her shell and just say, I'm done, or to feel embarrassed and say, I quit. So when she walked into the office I was using the next morning, she handed me an envelope and she stood there. She didn't sit down, she stood there. And I thought, oh, I blew it. I blew it. She's going to take the out. And I really felt like I had blown it because I know that there are people worth rehabilitating in positions. And I just felt it in my gut that she was one of those. And I thought, I blew it. You blew it, Michael. Somehow you blew it. But But I opened up the letter and it started out with, "I am so sorry and I am so embarrassed." And it went on for 3 pages of handwritten notes with tears that you could see in the ink that said, "I have never been happier in a job. I've never felt more respected. But the last couple of years, the things that are going on in my personal life have definitely affected my professional life. And I'm ashamed." And when I got done, I looked up and she looked at me with she was raw. And I said, "Thank you so much for choosing A. I am so glad." And that broke her then. She burst into tears and sat down. And she goes, "I was so scared. I thought you wouldn't, keep me. But, just the way you said it, I knew that I had to fight for this. And I wanted to fight for it." So I said, "You are absolutely wanted here." And I wanted to make sure that that was clear. But I had to shock you. I had to make sure you heard what I was saying, because you can't go on this way and neither can this practice. But I am so thrilled. I said, "This is what I want you to do. I want you to go home now again today and take the whole day and the whole weekend and just relax. Do something fun. Go get a pedicure. Go, out to a movie. Go do something fun. You are paid. There's just nothing to worry about." I go, "But just go relax and get yourself energized, because when you show up on Monday, I can't wait to start the next chapter of your career here." I almost get teary thinking about her. She showed up that next Monday and you couldn't stop her. She was amazing. She gave it everything. Her attitude was buoyant. She was just dynamite. And when I do performance reviews, I very, very rarely ever give somebody an exceeds expectations. I gave her 3 performance reviews over the next couple years, and every one of them had at least 1, if not 3 or 4, exceeds expectations. She blew me out of the water. When I was done with that consulting gig and we sat down the last time together, she said, "I would have never done this had you not told me the truth. And boy, did it hurt. And boy, was it worth it." So if I can leave you with any sense at the end of this session of what difficult conversations can be, they can be life-changing, profession-changing. They can change you, they can change others, as long as you do them with the respect for the person and the company, and you spend the time to prepare. So your assignment is this. First of all, I want you to think about the most difficult employee you have right now, or if you're not a leader right now, the most challenging colleague that you work with. And I want you to take some time to reflect. What does this person really need in order to be coached to a new level? What kind of difficult conversations do you need to have with them? Or if you're not their immediate supervisor, that somebody needs to have with them. And I want you to write out specifics. And I also want you to document what kind of challenges do you think you will personally face delivering news of this kind of caliber. Write it out and practice it. And then ask someone you trust to give you some feedback on what you've come up with. It's important that you practice this skill over and over again so that the conversations that you have are not as much difficult as they are definitely transformative.